Spouses who married the cool girl slash boy from your high school, what are they like now? My mom was the nerdy girl who got all the A's and had zero social skills, and somehow managed to start dating my dad, who's the popular, good-looking guy who everyone thought would peak in high school. She was actually advised by her family and friends that he wouldn't give her the future she was hoping for. They got married at 19, had me when they were 20, and while they were pretty broke the first few years of my life, he paid for my mom to attend law school, started his own business, and 25 years later with 3 kids, they're still so in love and have a pretty cushy life. My dad actually met one of the loud voices who told my mom she was making a big mistake marrying him, and she had said how she always knew he would turn out well, which he found hilarious. Story 2. My dad was crazy popular. Prom king, salutatorian, running back, serious ladies man. He met my mom in a nursing class in college, which he took to meet girls. Lecture course, and he was the only guy in a sea of women. This was in the 70s. They married, he became a car salesman, developed a terrible drug habit, and died of a heart attack at 52. Edit. The car salesman thing was in the 80s, so it was like American Psycho without all the murder, but with all the cocaine. All of it. I'm surprised there's any left. Edit 2. Thank you all for the kind words and interesting replies. Also, my first awards on Reddit would be from a random Insomniac post. I was only around for the back half, but I can tell you my father was magnetic. Even in his later, crispy, drug-addled years, he was still drawing people into his orbit with his awesome personality. Just flew too close to the sun, and then after years of therapy, I could post about it at 3 a.m. on Reddit. LOL. Story 3. My high school friend was the cool guy. Everyone liked him, guys and girls. He never got into fights, was always instantly invited everywhere, and girls totally swooned over him. He's still the same awesome dude, hasn't changed a bit. He married an incredibly hot nurse. Story 4. Mom was the cool girl. Still is. Still literally gets stopped by strangers talking about how cool slash pretty slash whatever she looks and acts. But divorced. Husband cheated. And widowed. Second husband died. So never really managed to get a happily ever after in romance. I've only seen her as a grown-up, of course, but going by pictures, plus what I remember as a kid, she hasn't changed all that much. I think sometimes she's too used to people being in her orbit and will get sad if something happens where she's not involved. Not overly so, but you can see she's expecting everyone to always want her there. Story 5. Reading these answers about prom kings, head cheerleaders, quarterbacks, etc. just has me as a Canadian going, wow, American high school really is like on TV. The high school experience just really isn't the same here, at least not my experience. I don't even think our ideas of popular are really the same, mainly due to how much less important sports are here. I think without football reigning supreme, it allows for way more variation for what makes someone popular. Now, I myself am American, and I can attest to the stereotype being very much what you see on TV. You've got your cliques, your clubs, you got your jocks, your cheerleaders. I mean, all of that, it's amazing how true and accurate all of that is. And I haven't even really stopped to think about what it's like in places where like football and sports aren't really put at the forefront. So that, I don't know, that was just kind of an interesting thought that popped into the head. So let's move on. Story 6. I'm the opposite of this question. I totally peaked in high school. Was cheerleading captain, valedictorian, prom queen, super involved and outgoing. Now I'm fat and very unnoticeable. Not pretty and maybe not ugly, just bland. And incredibly shy and reserved. Don't really have many/any friends, but married my high school sweetheart, who was quiet and mostly flew under the radar. And now he is outgoing, successful, and more handsome by the year. Story 7. My mom was the elite Atlanta debutante and lived a very cushy life at a budding Miami country club. Beautiful and very popular at the private school. My dad grew up on a farm in Virginia. They weren't poor, but they were definitely not refined. Eventually, my father's family made it down to Miami after selling the farm. He became the lifeguard at the country club pool, where my mom spent days lounging about. My parents say they saw each other, and that was it. The scandal was great. The debutante and the lowly lifeguard. They just celebrated 54 years of marriage. My lowly lifeguard father made quite the life for my mom, regardless of what all those elite twats said was going to happen. She gladly left the country club life for him, and they are still so utterly in love it's crazy. He carries a photo of her at the pool where they met. The only references she makes to being that girl are that they proved everyone wrong. They are beautiful, and I love their story. Story 8. I married the cool girl. Super athletic, everyone was her friend. We started dating in high school. She's kept up everything people loved about her. Nowadays, she isn't as interested in other people and focuses on herself, her career, us, and our future. We're planning to buy a house and have kids soon. I'm the breadwinner today, but I'm not so sure if that will be true in a few years, lol. Story 9. As it turned out, I married one of the mean girls. Didn't go to her school, didn't find out she was considered that till after the divorce. That's how it turned out. Then I dated one of the cool chicks. Did go to her school, did know she was considered that. And she was the most amazing human being I've ever known. That one didn't work out either. Now I'm just retired from relationships for a bit. Strike 3 would kill me right now. Thanks all. That was very therapeutic. I have friends and family that are awesome. Hopefully I'll have more someday. For now, it's just me and my kids I'm focusing on. Story 10. My brother was the cool kid in his grade, which extra annoyed me because I was a year older and a lot of my friends asked about him. He felt a lot of pressure to stay the coolest kid, so he made a lot of crappy choices because doing blow is what the cool kids are doing, I guess. He went to rehab by the time he was 16. He pretty much threw his life away after that and has been in and out of jail and prison since then, 16 years later. Edit. 3 people have now commented about me marrying my brother. I did not marry him. He's not my spouse. Be more original. Story 11. My mom was the cool girl all through high school, undergrad, and grad school. But life didn't go that well. For most of her life, she had to be caring for someone in the family who was ill, and that took a huge toll on her. First it was her dad, then it was me. I had childhood illnesses. Then her in-laws in quick succession, then her dad again, and finally, she had to nurse my dad until he passed away from a terminal illness. She was meant to be social and have fun, but instead, she was forced to be around sickness and sadness for her best years. But she is a very happy and mentally strong person in general who made the best of things. She hosted a lot of people and events. My house growing up was full of people visiting and having fun. She's very charming and easy to talk to, and has a lot of fans all the time. Though my siblings and I find her social side rather annoying. She isn't like that with us, and she tells us her charming side is just an act. And the real her is the lady who is constantly critical of us for our own good. She likes having groupies hanging around, people who are happy to take her help and be grateful to her. She has very few friends who could be considered her equals. She also expects a lot from other people and is constantly disappointed. She wants to be the center of everything. She doesn't know how to be a guest at anything. She somehow ends up running every event she's invited to. She sincerely believes she's helping, but it's just disrespectful sometimes, and when we tell her that, she doesn't get it. She likes to dominate everything and make decisions for everyone. We joke that if the Prime Minister was her friend, she'd somehow end up running the country for him. Story 12. I hate to be the one that bursts everyone's bubble, but my husband was the good-looking athletic guy with a great sense of humor that all the girls adored. I was the petite, blue-eyed blonde cheerleader that he chased for all 4 years in high school. We ended up getting together after high school graduation and were engaged 6 months later. I should have kept running from him like I did in school. He's now an addict who is verbally and emotionally abusive. He's a compulsive liar and he's stolen prescription medication from me to get high. He's very jealous and has accused me of having an affair with every male I've ever worked with, all without any merit whatsoever. It got so bad at one point that he told me I needed to quit my job and stay home with my son. Then he criticized me for not having a job. I teach high school English, and he's jealous of my male students because he claims he, quote, sees the way they watch me and look at me. He's made my life hell. He criticizes and ridicules me for being a diabetic, saying he never intended to marry a cripple, which is hardly the case. I'm happy to say that he'll be getting served with divorce papers very soon. God help the woman who takes my place because he can't do anything for himself. He's never paid a bill, made his own doctor appointments, etc. He's exhausting. He's also the guy who likes to tell our son what a stud he was in high school and how he eventually got the girl he wanted. Barfface. While dating, he portrayed himself to be the man he thought I would see as husband material. However, I quickly saw it was all an act shortly after we married. If I had to do it over, I would have left the country to avoid him. The only good thing to come out of our marriage is my son. I'm sorry that my story was the nightmare in the bunch. I'm just keeping it real. This happens a lot more often than people might think. When the two most popular kids in school get together, it's typically just an absolute nuclear blow up. Most of the time they don't even make it out of high school, but considering that they got together after high school, I guess it just kind of streamlined the inevitable, which, I mean, I hate it for her, but this, unfortunately, is something that you see a lot, where the jock just becomes a druggie and ruins the lives of everyone around. Story 13. My brother was one of the hottest guys in high school and went on to be a model. He's still cool and hot to many, but now he's a bit fat. He's my brother, so ew on the hot part in my opinion. But women still swoon, and he's so obnoxious. Think Matt Dillon, etc. era. He got dumped by his model, 17 years younger wife for a 26-year-old. He has impossible standards, and it's making him miserable. He's into these flashy, shallow women. Overall, he's doing really well, and his business is thriving. So the last few sentences of this post have me confused. He has impossible standards, and it's making him miserable, but then concludes with he's doing really well, and his business is thriving. Well, which one is it? Story 14. I sat next to the popular guy every day pretty much for 5 years, and I was so afraid of speaking to him. I'd watch him and his friends picking each other up and shoving the chosen one into lockers, or chasing each other round into a pylon and throwing their shoes at each other. Typical school crap. They were rowdy and loud and intimidating, but he was the quiet yet seriously funny one, and I crushed on him hard for years. He remembers me as the little blonde girl who didn't speak to anyone, because I was so anxious all the time. He also protected his sister from some a-holes every break time, and she'd come to find him for safety from bullies. Should have spoken to him sooner when school finished, because we have the same music taste, and we get on well enough now at 26 that we have a 6-month-old daughter together. My daughter from a previous relationship, and we just got engaged last weekend. I adore him. He's handsome, charming, and funny, and I would do anything for this man, as he would for me. Story 15. He was the one who had the six-pack, who all the girls swooned over. Very popular. I was not. Saw him after just leaving high school and started going out. Ended up getting married in our early 20s. God knows why. I guess we thought it was just what happened next. He never grew up. All he wanted to do was play online games. But I mean constantly. He would get in from work, walk straight past me to the spare room, straight online, and play until the early hours. Get a bit of sleep, go back to work. Same thing. Again and again. Never wanted to go anywhere. Just wanted to game. Eventually, I gave him an ultimatum. He chose the game. From what I gather, he's remarried to someone else who we went to school with and has 2 kids now. I was told she had to give him an awful lot of ultimatums before he eventually grew up. Yeah, that's a little ridiculous. Actually, that's a lot of ridiculous. If your wife sits you down and gives you an ultimatum, basically saying, like, stop playing video games or I'm going to leave you, for you to choose the games, like, bro, what are we doing here? Do you really love her, or is the game really that good? I don't know. I just can't imagine that being a conscious choice that someone would make. Man. Story 16. Not sure if he was necessarily cool, but my dad was perfect and head boy of his school. Got along nicely with everyone and was responsible. They didn't have prom there, so that was the highest honor you could probably get. Worked hard and all, and had his classmates help to tutor him. His grades didn't end up great because he came in late to school once and got after-school detentions. He would go home late and finish homework overnight, then get up at the crack of dawn to wash his father's bus and be late to school again. More detentions. He dropped out and transferred to another school. Now he's a retired policeman who's working in security to send me and my siblings to school. Does his best still. In my mom's view, he's still handsome and she still calls him a multitude of cutesy nicknames that he pretends to hate. Life is always as tough as normal, but he keeps going. Story 17. My sister, first child, was homecoming queen, prom queen, and head cheerleader. She's been a fundamentalist Christian since then and hasn't talked to me since 2006 because I was finally honest and came out. I'm the youngest and the only boy. I idolized her and Jesus got in the way. Edit. For context, I came out at 44 years old. 15 years this month. I'm now 59 and she's 64. I presented an olive branch to her countless times, mostly for my mother's sake. And my sister, the middle child, died recently, and I asked that we drop all this for my mom's and my sister's sake. Nothing. Man, I just had a wave of sadness and loneliness hit me. Story 18. I always think about this guy in my high school. He was super popular and the best friend of the worst bully I ever had. I won't say his name, but he went on to be a pro football player, and I always idolized him because of his actions on one single day. He pulled me aside and told me that he noticed I almost never ate lunch. He gave me $20 and told me to make sure I ate well and that he was sorry he was so mean to me. For anyone who has ever hesitated on apologizing, I will never forget that person and I will never think he didn't deserve his popularity. I was picked on, but bitter. Story 19. I married the homecoming queen, head cheerleader, and star basketball player. Yes, just one person. At 50, she's still stunning with an amazing drive. We're partners in real estate sales, and she's the engine that keeps our team successful. I just keep trying not to F it up. Story 20. We didn't go to school together, but I married the captain of the cheerleading team. She's a very down-to-earth, good human being who's never been one to be elitist or a snob in any way. She does wish she still had her high school body, who doesn't, but she looks more beautiful to me now than she did in any old pictures. We have a large family and are very happy. Every once in a while, I'll be acting goofy with my kids and their friends will give me the side eye and I'll casually drop, "You think I'm a nerd, huh?" Well, maybe so, but I married the captain of the cheerleaders. For some reason, this gets me instant credibility with young men. Story 21. Wife was the prom queen, state champion athlete, and generally loved by everyone she knew. Dated her popularity equivalent and struggled through its toxicity. With the help of a bunch of champagne and a shirt with a cat on it, I swooped in. Now, every day, I get to hear about how I'm punching above my weight class or outkicking the coverage or whatever metaphor by coworkers. But she's just the absolute best person ever. Complete smoke show, inside and out. Her best friend went to the rival school and was the same type of person, 10 plus years later. They are still just the best humans. Kinda cool to see, as the popular kids from my grade were pretty crappy. Story 22. I have two school friends who both vowed if they were both single at 40, they would marry. They did. He was never married and is morbidly obese and wasn't finding anyone to date, and she was divorced with 4 kids. He became a stepfather and earns a good income and supports her as she was really struggling. He helped straighten the kids out, and they have maintained the marriage and vow they kept. They love each other, but are not attracted to each other and have separate bedrooms. But the arrangement is working out well in a financial and family way, and both enjoy being full-time working grandparents now and making a tidy income and living a comfortable life. I'm sorry, what is this? They love each other, but they're not attracted to each other, and they married each other only because they both said that they wanted to get together if they were both single at 40? This is kind of weird, but I guess if they're happy, whatever. We've seen worse, right? Story 23. My husband was the coolest of his high school, different high school from mine. I met him a few years later, hanging out with the same friends, but now providing for them also. They kept talking about high school years, and it was oh so freaking boring. It was very difficult and painful to wean him from them, but here we are 26 years later. People adore him because they see him as larger than life, but always kind. He gives his time to so many. He's still the coolest wherever he goes. Story 24. I married the popular guy. We didn't go to the same schools or even in the same city, but we met when we were 30. Extremely charismatic and likable. Also used to having everything handed to him and done for him. He constantly spoke about how prior to me, he always was with hot girls and that he basically settled for me. I know I'm pretty, but I'm also overweight. He didn't seem to realize that while he was in shape in high school from playing sports, he ballooned up as an adult. We divorced earlier this year. He's already living with potential wife number 3, and me and his first wife have bonded over how terrible he treats his spouses. Yep, he's 35 and working on wife number 3, but he doesn't think he has behavior that needs to change because he spent his whole life hearing he was the best. Story 25. I was the cool girl in high school, marrying the cool guy from a neighboring high school, homecoming queen, and cheer captain marrying Mr. Popular Prom King. We're incredibly boring now. No college degrees, I work 2 jobs, he cleans for the school district. But we're happy with it. We have an easy routine, pay the bills, raise 2 beautiful kids together. Life is good, for the most part. Story 26. This question was custom made for me, lol. The most popular guy at the time when we were high schoolers, same age, was the most eligible bachelor. Every, and I mean every, including my best friend, girl was head over heels for him or at least had a crush. He was handsome, funny, kind to everyone, not afraid to talk to girls, a dancer, and extremely charismatic. I finally got to marry him when we were both almost 26. He's still everything he was in high school and more. What a freaking catch. I pinch myself every day. Story 27. I notice a lot of, they need to move on and leave that stuff in the past posts about spouses, be it football or whatever. Maybe that's when they felt most accepted, loved, and had the most people that cared about them. And now in the future, they don't have that and keep thinking about the past as something they wish could have continued. Maybe it's not always them that has the issue with that, but rather those complaining about it. I married my best friend, and we had practically everything in common. As time went on, she became completely different. Everything we had in common is no longer an interest to her, and I'm looked at as childish because I've continued to be myself and like what I like. I've watched her grow up and move on with life and lose everything that made her the person I knew back then, and I'm the one that's told I need to change. I'm the one trying to hold on to the past because that's when life was a joy. Don't always be so quick to dismiss those that reminisce, because they could be lacking important closeness with people that you may not be providing. Story 28. My very own father was football quarterback and baseball captain, had an offer to come to summer training camp with the Chicago White Sox, ended up in the Navy for 4 years, then got my mom pregnant. They divorced after 2 years of marriage, and he took his life 10 years later at the age of 39. Could never get over high school, and I mean that as honestly as I can. He is missed. Story 29. We're divorced now, but my ex-wife was a popular cheerleader in high school. I didn't even know much about her younger years when we were dating. I remember cracking up when she busted out a yearbook to show me. She said she loved high school and had a great time, had lots of friends, and ran with the popular kids. I was the total opposite. I hated those years of my life. I remember telling her that she probably would have disliked me if we had known each other as teenagers. I was a computer nerd that was into painting and graphic design. I was bullied a lot just for being socially awkward and super introverted. I was always carrying around and reading books instead of interacting with anyone. Anyway, the ex-wife isn't doing so well from what her current soon-to-be ex-husband told me. She had and still has a drinking problem when we divorced, but I got out relatively unscathed. She had a kid with this other guy a couple years ago and ended up getting a DUI. Not her first. She lost her license and they ended up splitting up. Due to her alcoholism, he got an order of protection against her after several domestic disturbances where she got violent. She's still going through the court system, but he will likely get full custody of their kid because she has violated a couple orders of protection to come after him. She is on probation now too, which I think she's violated as well. Overall, her life sounds like a mess. I feel bad for the guy because he's essentially me if I had decided to stay with her. I feel bad for her too because I know a lot of her issues are due to her dysfunctional childhood. We tried therapy twice, but she was quite hostile and resistant to it. Story 30. My husband was in the popular crowd in our small high school. He was quiet, super hot, and had lots of friends. I had the hugest crush on him all throughout high school, but was way too intimidated to talk to him in class. It wasn't until 3 or 4 years after graduation when I first started talking to him at the local grocery store where we worked together. He was still way too cool then, with his long, dark hair and all. He had dropped out of community college and was just working at the store. Now, I'm not saying it was all me, but after we started dating, he did go back and get a degree and finally quit the grocery store life. He has a really nice lab job and enjoys it. We've been married for 6 years, together 13, and we have 2 kids. I think it's so funny now because I thought he was so cool in school, but the real guy is this down-to-earth Lord of the Rings nerd, which is totally awesome. Story 31. I started dating a popular, athletic, varsity volleyball and softball as a freshman, girl in our senior year, when I was at the peak of my weird emo phase. People teased her so badly she broke up with me the first week, but quickly realized she didn't give a crap about what others were saying and we got back together. We've been married nearly 6 years now, in our 30s. She's largely the same sarcastic, funny person I fell in love with, but more mature as you'd expect with age. Very great mother, the breadwinner and glue that holds us all together. We also have an a-hole dog now, too. Story 32. Always fascinates me how being good at sports makes you popular in American TV shows. Never realized it was actually true. In the UK, you might be unbelievably good at something, but you'll still get called a knobhead and your best mates will still tell you you're a crepe. Just to keep you grounded, lol. Now again, I'm American, so I can't really relate to UK culture, but calling someone a knobhead and a crepe is just hilarious. Please share more British lingo in the comments. I'd love to see it. Story 33. I occasionally see the super popular dude from my high school. He was always nice, friendly with everyone, even though he still primarily hung with cool kids. He put on some weight, but is still super nice and a great guy. We had a conversation at a party recently. We're both in our 40s now, and he put his arm around me and said, "Dude, life is good, but man, you don't know what it's like to have peaked in 8th grade." Story 34. I'm way late to the game, but I was the loser who married the prom queen. Dating was interesting because she came from a rich family that gave her everything she wanted. I grew up in a very poor family. We're talking 13 people in a one-bathroom house poor. She went to house parties and did all kinds of crazy crap. Meanwhile, I was home hanging out with my nerd friend watching Star Trek. I thought she was kind of snobbish, but turns out she's the kindest person you ever met. Her heart bleeds a little too easily, actually. We moved in together and she had no concept of money. Her family didn't like her moving in with a guy before marriage. They really liked me, minus the whole poverty thing, and cut her off financially. Sink or swim, baby. My friends warned me she'd be gone by the time the rent was due and we couldn't afford it. Instead, she got her first job at a department store, while in college full-time, and we cut back on everything. She still had a closet full of designer clothes and shoes, but didn't buy anything new for a long time. Stopped eating out every meal. She couldn't cook to save her life, but I could, so we didn't go hungry. Overnight, she became a normal college student. Common people is about her, lol. She finished college, we put her through law school, she made crazy money right after she graduated. I didn't make quite as much, but we were doing well for ourselves. Then the recession hit, and we were back at square one. She stuck by me again through one of the worst times of my life. We had nothing. We had to move in with my still poor parents for 2 years to dig ourselves back out. We're not rich by any means, but we're doing well now. She still has her prom queen streak. She likes to dress up and buy nice things, but she now goes to thrift stores and garage sales and refuses to pay full price for anything. She got very good at DIYing stuff and made us a beautiful home filled with crap she made herself, including furniture. I'm very happy. Friends warned me she would take off after college. When we went broke, she would cheat on me. She is way out of my league looks-wise. That she's not the kind of girl to stick around long. Turns out she's in this for life. We came close to splitting up a few times, but she always reeled us back in. I put her on a pedestal, which probably isn't good, but it works for us. People don't see it, but she does the same to me. She gets overwhelmed easily, but I'm pretty good at fixing crap when it goes bad. She still experiences things for the first time, and it's really cool to see. For example, she saw an armadillo for the first time, and she was crazy excited. She was never into nature, lol. She stuck by me through some really dark times, and I will never know why. I don't deserve her, and she knows it. But I remember that every morning I wake up and try to do things that make me deserve her. Also, I got to the gym, learned how to dress up and do my hair because it sucks being the ugly skinny dude next to the hottest woman in the room. She still looks like she's out of my league, but at least it's not too bad now, lol. She gets hit on a lot, and I can tell it annoys her, or sometimes makes her angry, but I could care less. Our kids adore her, and so do my parents. My mom thinks she's helpless because she remembers back when she was helpless, but she's proud of her for how far she's came. Now I'm tearing up thinking about it. Story 35. We were both the cool kids. I was an all-American baseball player. She was the cheer team captain. Now, she's better than she was then. She's a nurse practitioner. She's kind, caring, compassionate, funny, intelligent, witty. I own a couple businesses. We're still pretty much who we were, just able to afford to do all the stuff we talked about doing together one day when we were kids. Story 36. Not spouse, but my uncle was always popular with the girls, especially mall workers. He was on the football team, and his mom was a total badass who rode motorcycles. Nowadays, he keeps talking about how he can throw a pigskin over some mountains and laments how they could have been state champions if the coach put him in fourth quarter. Story 37. I've been with my husband since I was 13 in middle school. That's 14 years now. Crazy to think we've been together longer than we were alive when we met. It literally feels like yesterday. He was the cool kid in high school, super popular. Lots of girls liked him, but he never cared or gave them attention. He has always given me his full attention and has always treated me like I'm the only girl in the world. We're both 28 now. He honestly still looks the same, just more mature. No weight gain, no hair loss, lol. He is still hot AF. He's still the same person I met in 2006. Still outgoing, still respectful. I can't complain. Story 38. A friend was a top track and rugby star for the school here in the UK. He is also in the top classes for all academic subjects, which is how I knew him. Super nice, modest, handsome guy. This is back in MSN Messenger days. He'd invite me into group chats with his other popular friends to talk politics and books. They were all nice guys too. He had me introduce him to one of my best friends, a pale alternative girl. Immediately hit it off. Dated through school and college and long distance when they both got into top unis. Both raised by single mothers. Both smart, both working class. The stuff that mattered they had in common. She was also anxious while she was calming, so they just fit together naturally. 15 years later, they're married and living in Asia. He makes 6 figures as an investment banker. Story 39. We broke up when I moved to California, but I had a hot, down-low gay relationship with the coolest boy in school. He was extremely beautiful and a talented athlete. Captain of the football team. He got married and had a kid, and we lost touch with each other for some time. Several years ago, I discovered him on Facebook and touched base with him. He made it clear that he was interested in rekindling our relationship. Made it perfectly clear. However, while I've maintained my health and some of my looks over the last 50 years, he did not. Hard liquor and the vicissitudes of a regular American career path had made him ugly in the manner of our father's generation. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. I loved him dearly back in the day. What stopped me was the discovery that he thought Barack Obama was from another planet and Michelle Obama was a man. The political discussion became heated one day and he unfriended me. He's a sad and lonely man whose pension got taken away by Republicans and who has no friends, drives an Uber to make ends meet, and had to sell his boat to pay medical bills for his crumbling body. When I close my eyes, I can think of it the way it was when we met and fell in love with each other. I remember prom night when we dumped our girlfriends, paddled a John boat across the inlet to an island out in the channel. We took acid and got naked and made love under the moonlight all night long. I remember that night forever. Yeah, I don't think this is real. I think someone is just trying to be funny. There's too much wildness going on here. Entertaining story nonetheless, though. Story 40. My hubby was the one. Extremely popular during high school, plus uni, soccer, basketball, really great looking, and nice sense of fashion. I'm an introverted girl who enrolled in science extracurricular and socially awkward, among others. People tended to bully me. Just realized I have autism spectrum. We're both quite successful, happily complemented each other with our own uniqueness, and I'm currently pregnant with our first. Really love him because he always made my day bright with his jokes. Story 41. Boomer here, so there's that. My wife was the most popular girl in our high school. Cheerleader, straight A's, dated the cool boys, calendar girl, etc. Married now 44 years. Best friends in high school, started dating in college, and she's an incredible wife, mother, and grandmother who put me through law school with a good job in her early 20s, looks 15 years younger than her age, and can still wear her jeans from high school, so I got lucky. Story 42. My mom was prom queen. Dad was the hippie stoner. They had me and my sisters by the time they were 25 and have been married for 43 years. I've never heard them raise their voices to each other, and they say I love you every time one of them leaves the house. They showed me that a good relationship involves love, support, and letting the other person be who they are. Story 43. Okay, so my mom was very popular and from a wealthier family. Youngest of 3. My dad was the youngest of 10, and his mom worked her ass off non-stop. They met at a country club where he worked maintenance and she did something else. Maybe she was a waitress? Can't remember. Anyway, my dad was definitely not her type. I'd chuckle at old photos of him. Anyway, my mom started dating my dad because she felt bad for him and was only going to date him for a week or two, then dump him. Straight up told my grandmother, her mom, that. Well, my dad managed to work his way into her heart in that time, and she fell for him. Now, here's where it gets slightly better. My dad thought he was hot crap after dating her for a while, thinking he might cast his line back into the water and see what else he could get. Before he did this, though, he was burned badly in a fire. Was a volunteer firefighter. Badly burned. 3rd-degree burns on multiple parts of his body. Guess who was there every possible minute? My mom. She worked, went to the hospital, slept on repeat the whole time he was there. That's when he realized he had been about to be a dumbass and make a terrible mistake. They got married, had 3 kids, a dog and a cat, and lived a really great life up until she passed 9 years ago. And that's the story of how a dorky-looking dude got the hot popular girl. Story 44. My dad was a senior when my mom was a sophomore. My dad was practically Danny frickin' Zuko. My mom was a total dork. She had awesome poofy curls, Coke bottle glasses, and headgear to boot. My dad used to pay her to do his homework. My mom married a total piece of crap. She calls him her practice husband, and had my brother for 2 years before becoming pregnant with me. She couldn't handle the trauma that he was putting them through and kidnapped my brother and ran away from sperm donor when she was still pregnant with me. She managed to get an apartment in the town she went to high school in. Every day was a struggle. One night, she was having a particularly difficult time with my 3-year-old brother and 8-year-old self and ordered a pizza for dinner. When the pizza guy showed up, my brother was running around being an a-hole, and my mom threw little me into pizza guy's arms and said, "Will you hold this, please?" While she proceeded to chase her 3-year-old around the apartment. This poor man is standing there with an infant in his arms, in the middle of pure chaos. I've been told he fell in love with me right then and there, and my mom about 20 minutes later. I still have the pizza jacket he was wearing. They dated for 2 years before she finally agreed to marry him. They had been happily married for 28 years. He was working at the pizza chain, that later became Domino's, and going to school to become a teacher. DJ's Pizza was a side hustle while he was a student teaching at the high school. He wanted to teach auto mechanics to help inspire troubled kids to stay in school so that they can go to college. He emancipated himself from his parents when he was 16, not because he was having trouble at home. He was, but because he was ready to start building his life. He was taking classes at the community college by 17 years old. He was paying my mom to do his high school homework because he was too busy with college, apparently. I took his shop class when I was in high school. He was a strong advocate for high school being a waste of time, lol. After finishing high school and community college, he graduated from the University of Michigan and went back to community college to continue taking classes for many years. He has so many diplomas and degrees that I can't even keep track. My mom, too, thanks to his influence. He saved us. He married my mom when I was 2 years old and adopted my brother and I when I was 8. And when they had enough money, we moved out of the slums to the upper middle-class suburbs of Chicago, where he taught auto at a very prestigious high school. When my brother and I were on our own and the suburbs sucked him dry of all joy and passion for what he was doing, they moved back to Michigan. They now live in total paradise, on 80 acres of land in the woods with their 3 dogs. He has his own shop in the barn behind the house, and he's teaching auto at the local community college. He and my mother are very happy living the lives they built for themselves. Apparently, his shop teacher inspired him and somehow convinced him that he could make his life into whatever he wanted it to be, and he made it his goal to be that inspiration for kids. He is now living the life that he wanted to live and doing exactly that. Story 45. My cousin's husband was the cool guy. Always messed around and got in trouble, while my cousin was quiet and studious. They're now married, live in a quaint village. He teaches history in the local school. They're both very into sustainability and just got a few beehives, if that's what they're called. Got a couple dogs. Altogether, he's really grown up and is an awesome guy. Story 46. My SO was cool all through middle school and high school. Being cool in middle school was wild to me because I didn't even realize that was possible, but he managed. Always had a girlfriend, in a band, not the school one, a cool outside of school band, gorgeous long hair, swoon, and played football. Super smart. I was awkward. Now he's a wilderness paramedic and is the nicest and most supportive man I could ask for. He cooks elaborate meals for me all the time and watches Disney movies. Story 47. My wife was the hot girl who was friends with everyone in high school, always on homecoming court, etc., who went on to be student body president of her university and sorority president. She's still smoking hot, still friends with everyone, and now chief revenue officer at a SaaS company, board member at a public charitable institution, and a fantastic mother of 2 girls. With her for 18 years, married for 15, and planning on hitting the dirt married to her. Story 48. Husband was the all-state football player, played college ball, never talks about it much. Heck, he doesn't even really watch the game any longer. He has a good job making over 6 figures a year. He raised his son alone from the age of 9 when his ex passed away suddenly. Met me and has raised both of my sons like his own since they were 9 and 13. They are now 20 and 24. He talks about the guys he played with, though, as he does miss those guys. One passed away at 53 last year and really hit him hard. Just a good guy all around. Story 49. My brother was the hot, he's my brother, cool guy. Met the hot, popular girl in college. Got pregnant, so they got married. Had another kid. They were the perfect, beautiful family. My brother was, and still is, a POS. After their divorce, he kept seeing his kids for a little while, but eventually stopped. My parents sent her checks for years since he wasn't paying child support. They weren't covering for him. They were doing this out of the kindness of their hearts. He's in major debt, is employed due to his disease, which is BS. He just milks it, plays video games all day, and gets high. Meanwhile, my ex-sister-in-law is a successful woman, my niece is at one of the best colleges in Texas, and my nephew, from what I understand, is a great athlete. They don't want much to do with my family because of my brother, which, I mean, I get it. I really miss them, though. I highly doubt any of them are on Reddit, but D, E, or C, if you happen to come across this, I love you all very much, and I'm so sorry my brother is a POS. Story 50. My husband is not from the US, but was the cool, good-looking guy who had killer soccer skills and girls falling at his feet. I was the heavy-set nerdy girl. A mutual friend introduced us, and that was it. He proposed 3 weeks after we met. Everyone was sure he was using me. After all, what would a guy like that see in a girl like me? This crap happened even at our wedding. Anyway, joke is on them. We've been happily married for 21 years, 3 kids, doing just fine. Story 51. I married the cool popular girl. She was cool because she was, and is, gorgeous and hung out with that sporty crowd. I was a pretty hardcore nerd, but I had some decent social skills and was able to make her laugh a lot once I sat behind her in class. Started dating at the end of high school and through college. Ultimately, she became a doctor who now likes many of my interests: anime, history, heavy metal, and partly shares my obsession with tech. Early on in our relationship, when I was in college, she even painted a cooler for me with images of all the stuff I loved. Dragon Ball Z stuff, 90s Pokemon stuff, Civil War history stuff. It was nice to have a girlfriend, now wife, that didn't belittle my interests, but instead tried to indulge in them. Story 52. We didn't go to the same high school, but my husband was the freshman that started on varsity football and baseball, has articles written about him, hung out with not only jocks, but all the different types of groups in high school. Type of person that can make anyone laugh. Truly an all-around like guy. Fast forward to today, and he's the most genuine, considerate, kind-hearted man ever. We just became parents, and I love seeing this side of him. Makes a killing with the dad jokes too, which I'm not mad about. Story 53. Unfair asking for the people who married them to answer. From my school, the hot girl got pregnant at 17 and had 4 kids by 25, is now single and a stay-at-home mom. The cool guy is a self-employed builder and barely able to feed his family. His work van is his daily drive car. The athletic kid played for a local team for a few years, got cut, and is now a PE teacher. The tough kids. One got told to leave the country and not come back. The other looks like a skinhead with face tattoos. No job and no future. Story 54. My parents were both the coolest kids in school, both prom queen and prom king. My dad, football captain. Sometimes when I was a kid, my mom would pull out their high school yearbook and show me. And I would be so upset because I thought I wouldn't be as cool or popular as them when I was in school. They both grew up decently wealthy too, but they didn't really do anything, so I grew up poor in a trailer park. It literally wasn't until I was in my almost late 20s before I realized that they were effing losers living in the past. My whole life, I just thought they had life figured out, and they chose to be like this. They got married after high school with no plan for the future, had their kids, lived in a trailer my entire life until I was a senior in high school, then decided to buy a house in the suburbs right when I left for college. I really haven't talked to them since. They also spent my childhood telling me that it was my fault and my brother's fault for us being there because we didn't clean up the house enough, or we didn't get good grades, or whatever. Since they got their new house, they're both working decent jobs, so I just hope they have a big inheritance, but besides that, they effing ruined the first 20 years of my life. It's nice everybody's talking about how their parents or relatives adjusted well, but my mom still talks about how cool my dad was in high school, and she's literally almost 60. It effing sucks. Story 55. My older brother was senior class president, homecoming king, valedictorian, first chair French horn, captain of the wrestling team, and I'm certain I missed a few. He was also very good looking and nice. He married his high school sweetheart, got admitted to an honors program at a great university, dropped out after freshman year and became a plumber. In plumbing school, he was the best student of his class and won this award that looked like a bronzed pipe wrench. I kid you not. He's been a plumber for 30 years. He also went on to win awards at the state fair with his first woodworking project. A cupboard, I think, and his first clay project, a tea set. He's incredibly well-liked, still very fit and handsome, but his body is wearing out from his job. I should add, he doesn't do people's toilets. He works on corp offices and plaza fountains and stuff like that. I always wondered what he could have been if he hadn't gone into the trades. To clarify, I mean if he'd gone into engineering or architecture. I respect the trades. Story 56. My mom was really book smart in high school, and my dad was a year older and was the tough boxer/wrestler that a lot of the guys looked up to. He had the nickname Tiger that everyone would call him. They met in high school and went to college together and ended up married with us 3 kids. My dad still has a reputation for being the cool guy of his group, and I periodically still hear all kinds of stories about how he beat up 2 to 3 guys who were bullying some of the smaller friends at parties, or something crazy from all his friends and family from back in New York. Sometimes I find it hard when I hear someone talk about my dad in reverence like he's a legend. I'm like, this dude? The dude I have to beg to put the AC on in the Florida summer heat? This is the guy you're talking about? Story 57. I married the hot girl from school. She was an absolute nightmare. We had 3 kids together, then she started fooling around behind my back, so I left her. Was seeing the kids a couple times a week, and they'd stay with me at the weekend each week. All was well until I started dating someone else. Then she flipped her crap and had the nerve to tell me I should stay single in case she changed her mind. I crap you not. I laughed at her and told her hell would be a cold place before that ever happened. Then she started playing games. She'd take the kids out when I was supposed to pick them up. I'd have them on a Friday night straight from school and take them back Saturday night. She decided to go away for the weekend without telling me, knowing that it was my new girlfriend's birthday on the Saturday, so I couldn't take the kids back. We made the best of the situation, and the kids went out for a meal with us, and we all had a great time, which pissed the ex off even more. The following Friday, I went to get the kids from school and was told they weren't in school that day. Went to the ex's place to be told by the neighbors that she'd moved away. All this without a single mention to me or the kids. Took me 5 years to track down that crazy female dog, because every time someone would ask about them, she'd find out and move again. Then one week I was off work after having an operation and went shopping with the new girlfriend. I was sitting outside a shop having a cigarette when a teenage girl comes up and asks me if my name is insert name. So I say yes. She says I thought it was and walked away. I thought it strange, so I watched where she went. She walked back to my 2 oldest kids that were missing. So I jumped up and held out my arms and got probably the best hugs I've ever gotten. I found out she'd been telling them for 5 years that I didn't want them now that I had a new girlfriend. They were living in a homeless shelter 35 miles away from me. This was on a Friday afternoon. I got a phone call that evening saying she'd thrown them out of their room and they didn't know what to do. Knowing my devious ex, I called the police and explained the situation to them, and he said to pick them up and call the station, and he'd talk to the kids to make sure they were going of their own free will. We went to the station and asked for the sergeant I'd spoken to and took a seat to wait. He came out to see the kids all cuddled up to me and said, "I don't even need to ask if they're happy to go with you. I can see from the way that they are that they're happy to." He just asked what had happened that day and gave me his business card and wished us good luck. That's my tale of woe about the hot girl from high school. I feel like there's some missing information here. I don't think that the mom can just pack the kids up and leave in the dead of night and disappear for 5 years without some kind of legal intervention. So, OP, why didn't you contact a lawyer? Why didn't you contact the police? Or were you just cool with your kids vanishing for 5 years? I don't really get that. It's kind of a weird story. Story 58. My parents, I think from what I heard growing up, my dad being a guy everyone knew and liked and still having a relationship with it seems like a ton of people from high school. My mom in the same boat and had been becoming a cheerleader for a professional football team. Happily married still, grew up with a great life, couldn't really imagine anything else. Always hear from my parents' friends how much fun they had growing up with them and sorts. Story 59. I was a dork in high school who, in my late 30s, hooked up with the former prom queen from school who now had a divorce, a couple kids, and had been married to the BMOC who, surprisingly, had peaked in high school. Suddenly, being a cool jock with lots of friends didn't matter nearly as much as a man with a job, no criminal record, and a full head of hair. She never even looked at me in school, but suddenly I was a catch. Can't lie, I took a little ironic pleasure in having to tell her I wasn't looking for anything serious. Story 60. I'm the marching band, debate team, no sports kind of guy. One of two families of color in our blue-collar, defunct old Steeltown high school. Married the high school homecoming court. Captain of the cheerleaders, college and high school. Honor student who only dated the jock captains. We became pen pals. I'm an old guy, when she moved away and stayed long-distance friends. We both secretly saved every letter we wrote to each other over a period of 9 years, and finally put them together when we got engaged. She was always my crush, and still is. She's beautiful. I would literally die for or without her. Been married 31 years. I always say that I'm the one who got the one that got away. Blessed. Geeks and nerds can win it all. Thank God we didn't have Instagram or put value on being Insta-famous, or I probably wouldn't have her. Story 61. I was the band nerd. She was the class president, star athlete, grade A student that everyone knew her name even if she didn't know theirs. Sassy, but very nice and caring. The kind of person who would stick up for anyone. She liked all the things she was involved in, but realized it was more for her mom's ego than her own enjoyment. She now keeps a small circle of friends she loves dearly and is on her way to becoming a public interest lawyer to fight for victims of sex trafficking, and I couldn't be more proud. Story 62. My husband was the quiet, hot, loner bad boy who wore a leather jacket at our high school. Long dark hair, dark eyes, all around aloof, isolated bad boy. Back in the day, he had a rep for being standoffish. He never dated anyone at our school, and we all assumed it was because he knew how hot he was, and that we were all beneath him as far as physical beauty/coolness factor goes. When we started dating, I asked him if he knew how powerful he was, and he seemed genuinely shocked. I also found out that the aloof attitude was from severe childhood trauma that he suffered at the hands of both parents. He had his friends, and that was all he really cared about. Today he is loving, kind, funny, working on healing his hurt inner child, and is the most wonderful father to our son. He is also still super hot. Story 63. I was a hybrid, 4-year varsity athlete and good high school athletic career that went on to NCAA Division I, but I was also the D&D, RPG, board game nerd who hung out with the band kids and computer nerds instead of the athletes because I like gaming and movies. I was only popular through athletic success in school, but I was very socially awkward until I got into college and had great teammates help me break out of my shell. Married the weird gothic girl from another school, and she's now the hot mom that a lot of other married guys slide into her DMs, which we read together and have a laugh at their expense. Story 64. My dad was popular in high school, played high school football, was the all-state fullback, once scoring 4 touchdowns in a single game. He ended up marrying his high school sweetheart, who is now a lazy crap who pesters him for money and refuses to get a job. All she does is watch TV all day while my dad slaves away as a shoe salesman at the local mall. Story 65. My husband was our student council president, valedictorian, Mr. Science and Technology, school's representative who won up to a national level, and I was nobody. But he chose me, and we got married last month after living together for 6 years. He got promoted as a supervisor last week, but despite all the achievements he got, he's still the most humble and the kindest person I've ever met. Story 66. He was a football player and hung out with the jock crowd, and I was in the drum line. His secret nerdiness he kept under wraps in high school as to not be bullied is now far more out in the open. He ended up becoming a software developer. We still hole up and have Lord of the Rings weekends and watch the trilogy. How did that come out 20 years ago now, by the way? Or have gaming nights. Been married 8 years. He helped me follow my dreams to become a vet and supported me through going back to school. 10 out of 10 would marry the hot jock with a sensitive geeky side all over again. Story 67. The cool guy in my high school was the mega church pastor's son. Athletic, made funny videos. Several years ago, he got engaged to a really gorgeous Instagram model, I think, judging by the pics they shared when they were together. His proposal made the news for being flashy and cute. They broke it off shortly after, and he made some weird video skit that implied she wanted to sleep with a lot of people. Presumably, he's been single ever since. He pretty much stopped using social media after that. I think he focuses 100% of his interest in the church. I get creepy vibes. Story 68. Currently been dating for well over a year now, and it's going so well. He's unbelievably kind, effing hilarious, generous, thoughtful, and lovely. We have tons in common with regard to family, our personal views/beliefs, and our goals. He respects my boundaries, always listens, and is beyond supportive. I'm so grateful to have this man in my life. Honestly, not sure why I'm even commenting. I'm just elated and so in love. He's the best man I've ever met, and I'm so lucky to love and to be loved by such a wonderful person. This is a sweet and inspirational post. OP, please don't feel any shame in giving everyone else hope that there are reasons to be hopeful and excited about finding their soulmate. So if anything, you've given everyone that needed that a reminder that it is possible. So thank you for sharing. Story 69. This was kind of the other way around. My mom immigrated when she was 16, so she was basically the exotic foreigner, and she was and still is extremely beautiful. One time, she went with her classmate to the classmate's parents' dinner. There, she met my father, who was the classmate's brother. He was several years younger than her, but immediately smitten with her. My father was beautiful, but a little bit of a weirdo. There, he said he wanted to be with her. She laughed and thought no in a playful manner, as they have a 7-year difference. My mom went on to have a relationship with the popular handsome jock of the school. Then, around 10 years later, past my father, visited her on New Year's Eve and promptly demanded that she break up with that guy and be with him. She took a pause and said, okay. She broke up with her boyfriend and got together with my father. Now they are happily married 33 years with 2 kids and 3 grandchildren. Sometimes I still cringe from embarrassment of how silly they are together. Father is like 6'3" and mother is 5 foot. As far as that other guy, 3 failed marriages, 5 kids, and countless women in between. He died with an alcoholic past. He fell off the stairs drunk and people found him a few days later. Last year. Kinda sad though. This is a wild story, but the funniest part has to be him just going up to her and saying, hey babe, you want to break up with your boyfriend and be with me? And she just says, okay. Like, if that really happened, that's freaking hilarious. And then this guy dying by falling down a flight of stairs because he's drunk. Not really to make light of someone's death, but man, what a way to go. Story 70. I was very popular in high school. My spouse was the kind that didn't leave the library. Never saw her for months, and we were in the same year. It was difficult to date her because she felt intimidated all the time. At first, she thought I was pranking her to laugh with my friends later, but eventually, I think on the 4th time I asked, she accepted to go out for dinner. She had the most beautiful smile in the whole college. Still has. For years, my colleagues told me that I'm wasting life, that I could have more women, that men like us were born to hunt women, not marry. I'm glad I found love before I turned into a first-class a-hole. Otherwise, I would have been corrupted by my friends back then. Story 71. Not me, but a group of friends I made in high school. I use the term friends lightly. They were those cool kids that were fun if they liked you, but kind of mean to other people. They all stayed together and were in long-term relationships together even now. About 6 of the men have died since by overdose. They may have been kind of mean, but it's still extremely sad to see these social people that everyone wanted to be picked off one by addictions into their adulthood. One died literally last week. Story 72. My BF was super popular in high school and was a very good and well-known athlete in our area. He came off as snobby in high school, but he was actually more shy and reserved. I always knew him well due to common friends, but really didn't understand how much depth he had until we started dating in our 30s. Even though we grew up in the same town and went to the same school, we never really talk about that kind of stuff, because we're grown-ups now, lol. But some of the other so-called popular kids/good athletes seem to focus on nothing but their high school lives and accomplishments. I guess that's when they peaked. Story 73. Didn't marry, but had a relationship with the most popular, best-looking boy in school. He was a senior and I was a freshman. He kept pressuring me for sex, but I was a virgin, so I wouldn't do it. He broke up with me 3 times over it, but I was obsessed with, so I kept going back. The 3rd time we got back together, I told him okay, but I'm still not ready. He said no problem, and then ignored me as if we never got back together at all. Cut to last year, 15 years after the fact. He finds me on Facebook and messages me to apologize and asks to meet me for coffee. He is now a fat taxi driver. I wouldn't have recognized him if I passed him on the street. Accepted the apology but did not meet him. He was probably still trying to get in my pants all these years later. Why yes ma'am, that is exactly what he was trying to do all these years later. Moving on. Story 74. I married one of the popular, my crap doesn't stink conceited girls from high school. Her 3rd marriage, my 2nd, and she had 2 young kids, in her 40s. She still looked great and held her age. We started dating while she was going through her divorce because her husband treated her bad and not there for the kids. We got married 6 months after we started dating, 2 months after her divorce. Turns out she never grew up. She was still that same conceited girl from school with the added bonus of borderline personality disorder, bullcrap story of how her ex treated her like crap, and she was a totally awful, crappy parent, and loved to flirt with any man she could. Turns out, she was telling the same sob stories to others about her ex, but about me, which was not true about me nor her former ex. After I dug into her past and spoke with her friends and her ex. Story is longer and gets worse, but I shortened for here since I'm on my phone. Story 75. I don't know if I was the cool guy, but I had some of the right characteristics. Captain of the football team, went to lots of parties, dated the prom queen for like 2 weeks. In my early 20s, I started to realize how much of an a-hole and a douchebag I had been in high school. I didn't treat people as respectfully if they weren't one of the cool kids, and I ignored a lot of people who I'm realizing now were super interesting and cool, just introverted or interested in unique topics. I wish I could grab my 17-year-old self and slap sense into me to stop worrying about being cool and start worrying about being kind. Story 76. My brother was the popular guy. Good looking, a good hockey player. This was Canada. Very sensitive and all around charming as F. He went off to study journalism, scored a nice internship as an actual paid journalist, as opposed to just being a research unpaid grunt. Got a contractor gig for the big journal, TM, right off school, had a somewhat rocky love life. Then, after like a year, he dropped off journalism completely, went on Tinder for the first time, went on a date with the first girl he swiped, started working retail at a used sports store. A couple years later, he's still with his Tinder date, just opened his 3rd store from the same franchise he started in, has been making more money than the one he started at. He gained weight, but is still charming as F, and that's why he's so successful at retail. Literally, my brother went through life with just a series of nat 20 on his charisma checks. Story 77. Reading this as a Scotsman is interesting to note that popularity equates to being good at sport and prom king/queen, which seem to go hand in hand. In Scotland, no one was popular, only a few cool kids, which was someone telling a teacher to piss off and going for a smoke behind the tech department. We don't do popular in Scotland. They quickly get put in their place. Oh, you don't do popular in Scotland, do you? So anyone that basically is feeling themselves, has a little swagger, a little charisma, you take it upon yourselves to put them down and say, hey, like, we're all equal. Stop being confident. Interesting. Story 78. I married the popular guy. We were years apart, however, and went to different schools. He was the athlete, stupidly handsome, great physique, and the guy all the girls wanted to be around and all the guys wanted to be friends with. I, on the other hand, was bullied horribly in school because I was poor and didn't fit into my mom's hand-me-down clothes very well. I was a size 0 and my mom was a 4XL. It didn't matter if I was pretty underneath. I was poor. After leaving home, I was able to afford makeup, clothes that fit, and proper hygiene products. When I met my husband, we became friends immediately. He always had some hot girl on his phone and he loved me boosting his ego. I loved his smile, his charm, those eyes. One day he turned those eyes onto me and I still don't believe it. For years, I thought him being attracted to me was just an ultimate prank. I mean, I've seen and met the women he dated. They were always perfectly tanned and polished, well manicured, good family backgrounds, perfect teeth, sunglasses that cost more than my rent. I think he broke a lot of hearts the day he proposed to me. Sometimes I feel like I still get snide looks at the bar from some women when all he does is brag about his beautiful bride when he is approached. He is so innocent about it too. Girl approaches and engages in conversation, and he's like, oh my god, you would love my wife. I think y'all would get along so fantastically. You should play some pool with us. Where is she? Points to me. I get a dirty look and they leave, followed by those looks for the rest of the night. I have to tell him he was being hit on and he seems super confused, like he doesn't believe it. My favorite thing about him is that he constantly reminds me that I'm the most beautiful woman he has ever met in his life. Less his mother. I think she's a model type of woman too. He tells me that so much at times I even catch myself believing him. I mean, I have seen his track history and the type he attracts, so I know his taste. He calls me his trophy wife in a loving and playful way. I think he likes the fact that I'm good with money. He was shocked when he realizes that he looks just as good in those $20 shades from the gas station as he does in a $400 pair of Ray-Bans. I refuse to buy soda because tea is better for your health and still has sugar and caffeine in it. We both give and share out of love alone and can communicate easily about anything and everything. He's charming and I'm sweet. Perfect pair. Story 79. He was famous as a bit of a troublemaker and a tech whiz. He'd been suspended once for trying to hack the school network. Rumors of what exactly he'd done were legion. I've since learned he was just trying to figure out how the website blockers worked and the teachers overreacted. People liked him because of his bad boy reputation. Plus, he was funny and played the guitar. Teachers never warmed up to him, though, because he was not a good student and would try to cover up by goofing off in class. In fact, teachers were quite surprised to hear I was going out with him because I had much better grades and a reputation as a rule follower. He now has a successful cybersecurity career and is much less socially awkward. It also turned out that he's very smart, just not an academic guy. He reads and thinks very hard on a wide variety of topics. We have a little house with lots of computer equipment and many guitars. He's an attentive and supportive spouse. I'd say everything worked out for the best. Story 80. Not quite what the OP was asking, but I was a nerdy kid. Skinny, 5'11", 130 pounds, with little to no self-confidence. I married a girl that was a bit nerdy too. Kind of quiet and awkward. We didn't go to the same school or live in the same city. Now we're both in our late 30s, and I guess we aged well because people say we look very good at our age. We are no longer shy or nerdy. It's nice having good-looking women my age who now find me very attractive and compliment me. I definitely didn't have that going on in high school, lol. In my 20s, I guess I became more outgoing and learned to mingle with the ladies better, became more confident, etc. I now have a beard, too, and everyone says it suits me better than being clean-shaven. A few years ago, I attended a friend from high school's wedding. The sister was the popular girl in the school. Every guy wanted her. She could have whoever she wanted. When I saw her at the wedding, now in her late 30s, she's aged horribly and looks like she has drug problems. You can tell by her mouth. Her teeth look like they have pipe burns from smoking hard drugs. It was quite sad to see her like that. I definitely hope she gets help. She has no husband or boyfriend. I noticed that the nerdy, geeky, and awkward girls from my high school are now the attractive ones, have successful lives, etc. Funny how life works.